Tea Party leaders from coast to coast joining us now.
Mark Meckler in Sacramento. He is co-founder of the Tea Party Patriots. Dallas Tea Party founder Philip Dennis, who's in Atlanta today, and David Webb, an organizer of New York City's Tea Party 365. Gentlemen, great to have you here. Mark, first to you. I've had, Mark, a number of Tea Party folks on who are Democrats. This is a bipartisan thing, but how many Tea Party activists, folks who were out protesting today, do you know who actually voted for Barack Obama?
You know, it's hard to exactly quantify. The latest statistics show that 40% of members of the Tea Party movement are either Democrats or independents. So no matter how you slice that, this is a tremendous sea change in the United States.
Philip, give us a sense of what's going on in your region, of course, closer to the south, and the sense that you're getting from, I guess, the mosaic of people who now feel that they are more akin to what you guys are doing versus any of the other parties.
Well, people are coming out and joining the Tea Party movement because we're seeing government doing things that don't make any sense to us, and we've been seeing it for a long time. You know, spending money and borrowing money from foreigners, it's not the way we live our lives. We're responsible. We pay our bills on time. Our government is out of control from a fiscal standpoint, and people are saying we've had enough of this because we see the consequences that lie ahead.
David Webb, the New York Times, no less, having to admit today on the front page, even as its columnists denigrate Tea Party activists as everything from racist to all kinds of things, says that supporters of the Tea Party movement are better educated, wealthier, and more conservative, poll finds. So even the Times has to admit that these aren't a bunch of loons out there. They're well-educated people who know what they're doing.
And in general, David, they reflect what happens. Most people, as they get a little bit older in life, become they're either in a higher position in business, or they own a small business, or in a position in a corporation. So they tend to think more fiscally conservative. Not surprising. It's just a factor of what it reflects in the population. What I don't like is what I've seen over time, where they marginalize and denigrate everyone, and I've got many Democrats, many independents, businessmen, independents, corporate officers that are a member of my organization.
It does feel like it's getting so onerous. By the way, this is a live picture in Georgia right now, and we're going to be broadcasting Neil Cavuto's there throughout the rest of the day. But gentlemen, let's bring it back to one thing. Mark, you said, and Philip, you also reflected this as well, that there's been so much spending. Now, people on the other side would argue, and that would be inside the Beltway, that all you have to do is look at the markets and look at profits coming back at a lot of companies, whether it's Google or JP Morgan or UPS, to say, you know what we did had to tap the brakes, or at least slam them on a year and a half ago. We were in a terrible situation. So my question, Mark, to you is, wasn't some of the spending, or at least you understand how some of it certainly helped people's 401ks and their pensions come back?
I think the answer is what you will see if you spend hundreds of billions of dollars. And remember, we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars entering the economy, money printed. Absolutely, you're going to see a bump come out of that. It's artificial. Look, if you went out and you took a cash advance on your own credit card for $20,000, threw it in the bank account, your lifestyle would increase, things would feel better for a little while, but eventually you got to pay the piper. And the same is true for the government. And when the government has to pay the piper, that means we have to pay the piper. And that's what people are rising up against. People have more common sense than their government. They understand basic finances. The government is completely out of control and has lost touch with reality.
Well, and David, exactly to Mark's point, Americans, individual Americans, have got their finances in pretty good order right now. It's interesting that this poll in the New York Times says 80% of Americans feel that their finances are in good order. Businesses clearly have been squeezing their operations to the bone to try to become as efficient as possible. The only organization that is still inefficient and still spending way beyond its means is the government, the public sector. The private sector is doing its bit. The public sector is not.
And most of the money that's been spent has gone to the public sector. When you look at the money out of the stimulus in the departments and the areas it was applied, it's increasing jobs in government sectors, unions, teachers' unions, and those legacy costs have to be paid for by Americans. I mean, the government doesn't own a piggy bank. It owns a printing press. And Americans do have to watch our pocketbooks. We no longer have government spending. We have government borrowing, because you can only spend what you have. You're borrowing otherwise.
Well, you're absolutely right. So, Philip, the big question now becomes, after April 15th, which is a very appropriate day, I would suppose, for these events, how do you keep the velocity going of your movement?
Well, I don't think that's a problem. Ever since the Obamacare health care reform bill passed, we have seen tremendous interest from new people coming into the organization. And like Mark Meckler said, a lot of those people are being Democrats and independents. What we need to do and what we will keep doing is organizing and educating the voters and advocating fiscal responsibility from the new leaders that we will replace the big spending Republican and Democrats with. We're not going to be sending new leaders to Washington with scalpels to trim away the fat on the edges. We're going to send them there with chainsaws to attack that federal monster that's totally out of control.
Philip Dennis, Mark Meckler, David Webb, wonderful to see you all. Thanks very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Don't forget, by the way,